The International Criminal Court is the first permanent court with jurisdiction over the most serious crimes threatening the peace, security, and well-being of the world.
We are taught that the world is a room governed by rules. We are told that in 1945, humanity graduated from the jungle and moved into a rule-based order. We built high-walled courts in The Hague and signed thousands of treaties meant to ensure that might no longer equals right. But there is a fundamental difference between a law and a suggestion. In your city, if you steal, the police arrive. There's a sovereign power that holds the handcuffs. On the global stage, there's no world police. There's no jail for superpowers. Today, we're looking at the world's most expensive illusion. If a law cannot be enforced against the very people who break it, does it actually exist? To understand why the system is failing, we have to look at a concept called legal realism. This theory argues that the law isn't what is written on a piece of paper. It is simply whatever the powerful actually do. In this view, a treaty is just a promise made in a moment of convenience. If a nation has the power to break a rule without consequence, then for that nation, the rule doesn't exist. International law isn't a fixed set of gravity like truths. It is a social club where the strongest members set the house rules and change them whenever they want.
China has long claimed almost 90% of the South China Sea, militarizing reefs and islands that other countries claim as their own. But it's become increasingly aggressive.
Our first example of legal realism in action is the South China Sea. In 2016, a tribunal in The Hague ruled that China's expansive maritime claims had no legal basis. It was a landmark victory for the rule of law. But China didn't even bother to show up. They called the ruling a scrap of paper and kept building. The law said stop, the power said no. Power won. These prove that in international disputes, the court has no bailiff. If you are big enough, you can simply ignore the judge.
They are not just pirates, they are typical bully state. They are trying to justify this aggressive and local and barbaric actions just because they have the capability to do it.
But ignoring a court ruling on maritime boundaries is one thing. What happens when the law is called upon to protect human life itself?
Over 100 aid groups are warning of mass starvation as the food shortage becomes increasingly dire. The World Health Organization says there are now nearly 30,000 children under 5 who are malnourished.
This brings us to Palestine. South Africa brought a case to the International Court of Justice seeking to stop a genocide. The court issued binding measures to protect human life in Gaza. But the ICJ has no army. It relies on the UN Security Council for enforcement, a room where the accused's strongest ally holds a veto.
14-1. 14 members of the Security Council voting for a ceasefire in Gaza.
Those against.
But it's blocked by one, the United States.
When the law says stop and the powerful say no, the law ceases to exist. In the rubble of Gaza, The Hague's gavel is met with a deafening silence. The ultimate expression of legal realism is the death of sovereignty. In 2003, the United States invaded Iraq without a UN Security Council resolution.
I take the threat very seriously. I take the fact that he develops weapons of mass destruction.
It was a direct violation of the UN Charter. The UN Secretary General called it illegal, but there was no arrest, no sanction, and no consequence. Fast forward to the present, the playbook has reached its final form.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro is in custody in New York following his dramatic capture in a U.S. military operation in Caracas on Saturday. President Donald Trump says the people of Venezuela are now free of Maduro's dictatorship.
In Venezuela, the U.S. didn't just ignore the law. They replaced it with the law of the bounty. By placing a $15 million reward on President Nicolás Maduro and then physically capturing him in his own capital, the U.S. treated a sovereign leader like a common fugitive. Whether it's an invasion of Iraq or a snatch and grab in Caracas, the message is clear. Sovereignty is a luxury for the weak, and the suggestion for the strong. When a superpower can put a price on a president's head and simply take them, the UN Charter isn't a law, it's a historical footnote. We keep the illusion of international law alive because the alternative is admitting we are still living in the jungle. It gives us a vocabulary to complain, but we shouldn't confuse that with justice. International law isn't a shield for the weak, it's a scoreboard for the strong. Until there is power greater than the nation state, the rule of law will remain a dream we haven't quite woken up from.